War doesn't care about your excuses. It doesn't care about your injuries, your comfort, or your second chances. The sky doesn't give participation trophies. You either dominate it or it kills you. And if you want proof that human stubbornness can sometimes punch reality directly in the teeth, allow me to introduce one of the most unreasonably dangerous men ever to strap himself into a fighter cockpit. Group Captain Sir Douglas Bader, the man who lost both legs and then went back to war anyway, just to casually become one of Britain's top fighter aces. Bader wasn't born a legend. He was born in 1910 into a fairly ordinary British family, bounced around childhood postings as his father served overseas, and developed the one trait that would define him forever: an absolutely terminal allergy to authority. He was talented, athletic, reckless, and utterly uninterested in being told what he couldn't do. Naturally, this made him a perfect candidate for early aviation, which in the 1920s was basically mechanical bravery mixed with poor life choices. By the time Bader joined the Royal Air Force in 1928, flying was still half science experiment and half death wish. Aircraft were fragile, instrumentation was minimal, and safety regulations were often written in blood. Bader loved every second of it. He became a skilled aerobatic pilot, but also developed a reputation for buzzing airfields, ignoring altitude restrictions, and treating gravity like a polite suggestion. Then, in 1931, gravity stopped negotiating. During a low-level aerobatic display, Bader attempted a slow roll far too close to the ground. His wing clipped the surface. The aircraft cartwheeled into oblivion. The result was catastrophic. Both legs shattered beyond saving. They amputated one above the knee, the other below. In the early 1930s, this wasn't a rehab and comeback story. This was a career obituary. The RAF medically discharged him. Flying was over. Life, as far as anyone sensible was concerned, had just dramatically downsized. Except Douglas Bader was not sensible. He learned to walk again on metal prosthetics. He drove cars. He played golf. He refused to live carefully. And as Europe began sliding toward war in the late 1930s, the RAF found itself suddenly very short on experienced pilots and very long on existential panic. Bader, stubborn as ever, pushed relentlessly for reinstatement. At first, the RAF resisted. The idea of a double amputee flying a high-performance fighter made bureaucrats sweat through their paperwork. Eventually, necessity beat fear. In 1939, Bader was allowed back into the cockpit. Not only could he fly, he could fight. By 1940, Bader was operational during the Battle of Britain, flying Hurricanes and later Spitfires against the Luftwaffe. And here's where the story stops being inspirational and starts being deeply inconvenient for every excuse you've ever made. Bader wasn't just keeping up, he was dominating. He racked up confirmed kills rapidly, Messerschmitt's fighters as well as bombers, engaging aggressively, leading formations, hunting enemy aircraft with a predator's instinct. His official tally stands at 22 confirmed victories, plus several shared kills and probables. That puts him firmly among Britain's top aces of the war. He became a squadron leader and then a wing commander in record time, commanding multiple squadrons simultaneously during massive air battles. He pushed aggressive formations known as the Big Wing, favoring overwhelming force rather than defensive scrambling. It was controversial, but when it worked, it smashed German formations hard. Bader flew with artificial legs locked into rudder pedals, managing high-G turns, violent evasive maneuvers, and combat stress that would exhaust able-bodied pilots. If anything, his disability made him more ruthless in the air. He had no patience for hesitation, no tolerance for weakness. He had already beaten the worst hand fate could deal him. The Luftwaffe was just another problem to solve at gunpoint. Naturally, this combination of brilliance and absolute disregard for authority made him beloved by his pilots and quietly terrifying to his superiors. In August 1941, over occupied France, Bader's luck finally ran out. During a dogfight, his Spitfire collided with another aircraft, possibly an enemy fighter, possibly a mid-air collision during the chaos of combat. His tail was sheared off. The aircraft disintegrated. Bader bailed out at low altitude. One of his prosthetic legs detached during the jump. He landed in enemy territory, wounded, furious, and very much alive. The Germans captured him. Now, here's where the story veers sharply into dark comedy. The Germans quickly realized they had captured a famous ace and a double amputee missing one of his legs. While recovering from his crash wounds in a German hospital near Saint-Omer, Bader wasn't treated like a broken prisoner. He was treated like a fellow predator who'd simply lost the last round. The Luftwaffe quickly realized exactly who they had captured, and word reached one of Germany's most famous fighter leaders, Adolf Galland, the mustached terror of the Luftwaffe and one of their highest-scoring aces. Galland didn't come to interrogate him. He came to meet him. The two men sat together, drank tea, smoked cigarettes, swapped flying stories, compared aircraft performance, and spoke the same universal language pilots always do. Speed, climb rate, firepower, who nearly killed you last week? Galland even brought Bader out to the airfield and showed him his personal Messerschmitt, letting the enemy ace climb into the cockpit and examine the machine that had been trying to kill his countrymen hours earlier. And when Galland realized Bader had lost one of his prosthetic legs during the bailout, he responded with an act of pure chivalry in the middle of a global war. He arranged for the RAF to airdrop a replacement leg by parachute into occupied France under a temporary ceasefire. Two enemies coordinating logistics, not to deliver bombs, but to return a man's leg so he could keep walking. Later on, he attempted multiple escape efforts from German POW camps, constantly testing security, organizing tunnels, stealing uniforms, and generally being the most inconvenient prisoner imaginable. The fact that he was doing this on artificial legs only made the Germans increasingly tired of his nonsense. He successfully escaped once, traveled briefly before being recaptured, and made several more attempts afterward. Eventually, the Germans gave up trying to contain him in normal camps and shipped him to Colditz Castle, the prison reserved for prisoners who absolutely refused to behave like prisoners. Even there, Bader kept pushing escape efforts, morale boosting among prisoners and resisting cooperation at every opportunity. He remained imprisoned until the end of the war in 1945, when Allied forces liberated Colditz. After the war, Bader didn't fade quietly into history. He continued flying, became a public speaker, an advocate for disabled veterans, and a living symbol of resilience without self-pity. He rejected the idea of being inspirational in a sentimental way. He hated being treated delicately. His philosophy was brutally simple: adapt or get out of the way. Years after the war had burned itself out and the world pretended to become civilized again, Bader was invited to dinner in Germany alongside former Luftwaffe pilots, including Galland himself. Bader walked into the room, surveyed a table full of men who once tried very hard to murder him at 20,000 feet, and reportedly deadpanned, "My God, I had no idea so many of you bastards were still alive." Old enemies laughed, glasses clinked, war stayed in the past, but the bond between fighter pilots never really faded. Because once you've tried to kill each other in the stratosphere, polite conversation comes easy. Bader died in 1982, leaving behind one of the most improbable combat careers ever recorded. Because here's the uncomfortable truth. Douglas Bader didn't succeed because he was inspirational. He succeeded because he was aggressive, disciplined, technically skilled, relentlessly stubborn, and absolutely unwilling to accept limitations imposed by either bureaucracy or biology. The legs were never the story. The refusal to quit was. In an age obsessed with excuses, safety nets, and managed risk, Bader stands as a reminder of what raw human will can accomplish when paired with competence and violence of action. He didn't ask for special treatment. He didn't demand sympathy. He simply climbed back into a Spitfire and went hunting again. The sky didn't care that he had no legs. Neither did the enemy. And neither did Douglas Bader.